The growing use of China's currency, the renminbi, has become worrisome to U.S. policymakers. After all, for the past 6 decades, the U.S. has benefited tremendously from its dollar being the world's premier reserve currency. The prospect of the renminbi replacing the dollar and China becoming the world's hegemon is feared in the West, along with China's growing role as a global financier. But how likely is it really for China's renminbi to eclipse or challenge the US dollar as a reserve currency? Does China even want this for the renminbi? Our research suggests not quite. We see in the Chinese literature coming from the People's Bank of China and financial authorities in China real limitations in the desire for the renminbi to be used as a global currency of settlement, and instead increasingly moderated ambitions for the use of the currency.
If you look at the history of the last 200, 300 years, you will discover that unipolar international monetary systems are the exception and not the rules. So that's why, in our opinion, the most likely scenario going forward is a scenario where both the dollar and the renminbi will play an important role in the international financial system.
So what monetary coexistence is likely the persistence of the dollar as a premier reserve currency for a variety of reasons, including our open, deep, liquid capital markets and the credible commitments U.S. policymakers make to restraint in terms of intervening in our own financial system and in global financial systems, but inviting limited renminbi internationalization where appropriate, and not using U.S. political capital to try to convince third-party countries not to engage in say, renminbi swaps or other forms of renminbi internationalization. So accepting China's global financial rise, but on significantly global terms, rather than excluding China in a way that may come back to bite all of those parties later on. What we take away from looking at the limits of China's ambitions and the possibility for those ambitions to be realized in the global financial sector is that reflexive competition and trying to push China back in every possible arena may only end up having effects that we regret later on. And what's interesting is finding certain arenas for competition, like the global financial sector, like monetary policy, right, whereby the invitation to China to participate is sort of self-reinforcing certain kinds of behaviors that many participants in the global system would like to see.